MSPs might not seem like a large enterprise style organization. Their tech spend is that or the equivalent of an enterprise organization in the US. We did a free proof of concept for one of their vendors. We found $1.6 million of annual leakage from that one vendor. And keep in mind, this MSP has 121 vendors that they're trying to build process for.
Welcome to Go-to-Market Playmakers, where we bring you winning go-to-market strategies from the industry's best. Each episode, we sit down with B2B tech and SaaS founders, executives, and industry playmakers who've mastered the art of taking products and services to market. Whether you're scaling a startup, refining your go-to-market motion, or driving revenue growth through a channel program or partner ecosystem, this is where you'll learn the plays that work. I'm your host, Jeremy Bayless. Today's theme is new market entry strategy. I'm very excited because I'm joined by Josh Ryder from Surge Capacity. Josh has 20 years of experience in strategic leadership, account management, business development, across technology and telecommunications. He's a director at Surge Capacity, where they deliver telecom and IT spend management solutions that enhance processes, automation, and profitability while driving operational efficiencies. They've got 15 years of experience in the US and 6 in Australia. And he's leading national sales, marketing, and operations. This is a really interesting conversation in the way that the Surge Capacity team was looking to enter Australia as a technology expense management software platform. In this conversation, we go deep on what sets them apart and particularly the challenges that they had finding that technology expense management didn't exist or doesn't exist in Australia in the way that they had experienced in the States. So it was really great to hear the strategy that the Surge Capacity team undertook to really land and educate the market on the benefits and the need for TEM itself. And then beyond that, also sell in Surge Capacity as well. I hope you get as much value from this conversation as I did. Let's get straight into it. Hey, Josh, it is so awesome to have you on the episode today. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation as well.
I have been too. This is going to be a really fun one. We're here talking new market entry, bringing a SaaS company into Australia and the ANZ market. Before we get into all of that, I want to start with your origin story. Tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, look, mate, it was a wild journey. My brother was in the military for Australia. He got posted to Fairchild, which was in Spokane, Washington, in the United States. So me being a younger brother, I kind of pivoted and thought, well, what an opportunity. I was about to go to university here in Australia, changed plans, got into Eastern Washington University in the same city that he was going to be posted to. So moved over there and started going to university. Kind of fell into the tech space. It was quite odd. I used to run a functions department for a major hotel out here, my first job out of school. And we used to look after the Down Under Games, which is an American organization that would come over and compete against Australian kids. Long story short, I'm working in the States and ran into one of the organizers of the Down Under Games who was working for a company called Verizon Wireless, which is now one of the largest technology companies in the world. And so kind of a sliding doors moment. He was like, what are you doing here? How are we meeting up with each other? This is unbelievable. Yeah. He's like, what are you doing? I said, I manage a retail store while I'm going to university at the moment, at University of Eastern Washington. And he's like, how much do you make? I said, I make this. He goes, I've got a commission only job for you selling cell phones, out of the mall. And I was like, okay, I don't even know how to use a cell phone, but I can give it a go, right? I'll move my charm and wit and smile and all that kind of stuff to try and do that. But mate, that really kind of catapulted me in. I had no background in technology. I was going to university to be a college professor in history, which subsequently went away over my career because I got really excited about technology. So I kind of started there. Mate, within 7 years, I'd gone through the appropriate channels of account management, B2B, small business, major account management, business sales manager, director. I moved my family down to Los Angeles, was the director of B2B and marketing for all of Los Angeles for them. And then I was fortunate enough to be on a strategy group where I became a sales overlay. So I got to fly around with Nike, Sony, and Toshiba. And my whole goal was to actually act as if I was working for Nike. So really understanding the problem set back of house and looking at ways we could help alleviate some of those gaps and make them more productive and efficient, maybe kind of change the mindset of some of the older school ways of doing business, which was really exciting, right? You're basically pulling back the layers of an onion to see what's kind of in the middle of it, and hopefully there's a pearl or something like that. Onion was probably the wrong analogy there to find the pearl, but yeah. So mate, I spent 7 years thankfully flying around with like Nike, Sony, and Toshiba. They're all manufacturing companies, so a lot of what I was advising on and really getting into with them was the IoT space, smart metering, smart cities, different solutions that were really outside of the scope of commodity type services. And I really saw the value of what that provided. But to leap forward into where we are now, very prevalently and early on, I started with Verizon in a capacity around 2004, 2005. You had wireless watchdogs. These people were doing technology expense management for companies because they couldn't understand their billing, right? Billing's quite complex, even though it shouldn't be. Back then it was a commodity service. So it should have been, one phone, one bill. But, back in the day, you'd have one phone and you receive a 3,000 page bill with all of this detail. And you're like, well, I don't understand this. So it leapt forward. And it wasn't until I started working with the Nikes and the Sonys and the Toshibas, you actually see TEM at a hyper scale, and you see the value that it's bringing these large, kind of more enterprise, complex organizations, and they're very what's the word? They're very decentralized in their decision making process. So sometimes there's leakage coming out of departments, but they wouldn't otherwise know because it goes under the radar because the decision making is in so many different places. And so the value of TEM, bringing everything into a single pane of glass, you can see what you're paying for. You can actually, it's bringing in the contract as well to make sure that you're getting all the discounts that they promised, in those early, stages of the contract negotiation. And so for me, I was like, man, this takes all of the processing of your accounts team and having to try and go through IT invoices and billing to see if that's actually accurate, because everybody's received a carrier bill. I don't want to, say names, but we've got kind of the big two carriers here, or big three now, carriers here in Australia. The billing can sometimes be up here and down here. It never seems to stay at this constant, plane. And as an organization, as an account team, you don't have the time in your day to be able to actually go in and audit the billing. And if you were to decide, okay, this is a big enough number, we need to go in and audit this, you're looking for a needle in a haystack. You've got a 3,000 page bill. You're looking for $12,000 to $50,000 in overage through that bill. These can be things like GST anomalies. Like GST might be off a few cents, and it's just it's an error in the processing of that bill. But there's no way you're going to find, a line item say, 800 of our 4,000 services got charged an additional fee in GST. A human wouldn't be able to go through an Excel spreadsheet with however many lines of services. And that's actually how it's being done in Australia today. If a company wants to audit their invoice, they literally have to take the invoice, pivot it out into an Excel spreadsheet, and then spot check it, because there's no way for them to go line item by line item to be able to review the billing. So the value that service showed me, customers wanted it and needed it. And also for the carrier side, it removed the peaks and valleys. So it actually, for me, working with the carrier or the IoT company, it stopped any of the, tenseness between the billing. Like if I'm sending the customer a bill and it's higher and they've got to go and find it, what's the relationship like? It starts to, kind of cut some lines in between the relationship. what TEM does, it keeps everything, it removes all the peaks and valleys. So the customer's actually happier because they're getting consistent bill. We're happier because we don't have to manage that for the customer and have awkward conversations around why their bill was higher or lower. TEM's actually making sure that it's in complete alignment with what they're buying and procuring. And, the bill might have gone up, for a valid reason, like they might have had a project. TEM's going to identify that and say, hey guys, this isn't one to worry about. This isn't an overage or anything like that. It was a project that was run. Here was the cost, and it was associated to this invoice and this project. So you guys have peace of mind that when you're paying your bill, it's completely audited, validated, reconciled prior to going out to the customer. And the best part is the accounting team don't actually ever have to touch an IT invoice. It comes directly into our software. We audit it, optimize it, send it back to the ERP system so the accounting team can process it. They literally don't touch it. They never have to look at an Excel spreadsheet ever again because we've utilized software to be able to achieve that. So,
yeah, awesome. So when you were in the States and you're starting to get a lot of exposure on your client side, and you're starting to see in those early days what they're experiencing, what kind of wastage was it? Are we talking in orders of magnitude of wasted funds going out the door?
I could scare you with the numbers.
Scare me.
Yeah. So look, we've had a number of customers, and you've got to think, right? We started out in the US, right? So completely saturated technology expense management market, right? Every company in America over 50 seats is using TEM. Every single business. So in America, it's very different. You're having to come in and actually show the value of your software and what it can do, because all software isn't created equal. Some software doesn't get as granular as it needs to, but that's why we've, for us, we bore the expense of having in-house dev people that actually reside in our business, so we can continually evolve our software to be able to get granular, to find additional savings that other TEM software and companies won't be able to do. But yeah, look, I could tell you some more stories. I won't name the names of the companies on here today, but I can tell you major manufacturing company that I've probably mentioned earlier today. We found $1.75 million of savings within the first 5 months that we were actually able to put back in their bank account.
Wow.
I talked 5 months, $1.75 million, and they already had a TEM company in there looking at their business.
Wow.
We worked with very early days with an EV car manufacturer in the United States that obviously grew very rapidly. We've had them as a customer since kind of day one. I think at this point, I think they're up to $2.2 million of savings per year just using our TEM software. So those numbers can kind of scare you. What scares me in the Australian market, because TEM doesn't exist here, we're working with like MSP organizations over here, and MSPs might not seem like a large enterprise style organization. Their tech spend is that or the equivalent of an enterprise organization in the US.
Right.
We did one recently where we did a free proof of concept for one of their vendors. It was their biggest vendor, and it was an ISP company. We found $1.6 million of annual leakage from that one vendor. And keep in mind, this MSP has 121 vendors that they're trying to bill process for. The accounts payable team is trying to manage these invoices to be able to get them out. They get them out quickly. A lot of the times, customers would complain, and they do a great job of customer service to help fix the invoices as quick as they can. But they were seeing a lot of invoices that were going out incorrectly. And the other piece, the problem set for this organization, and talking to them in great depth, was they'd feel like their sales organization would have a great month, right? High fives all around, everybody's happy. And then the COGS report would come out, and there'd be an additional, like, we're not talking, your bill's gone up $10,000 at this point. We're talking, $400,000 of COGS that have fallen out of the sky that we now need to pay, or we need to audit this billing, which means we won't be able to pay the bills on time. So if they are accurate now, we've got, overage charges that we've got to pay. So it's that yin and yang risk you've got to kind of take. But your great sales month all of a sudden isn't so great because you've got to take $400,000 off, what sales just brought in just to pay your COGS. And they couldn't even validate that those charges were accurate. So potentially they should have been holding on to their $400,000 of additional COGS that they just had to pay out to vendors. But there's no manual way to get into a granular level to audit your invoicing. It's just not possible.
So the TEM is the software that's auditing reams and reams of invoicing at high pace and is what's able to enable the business to scale up to get better insight into what they're actually being billed for. What's your view on why was that so commonplace in the States first, where you mentioned it was already a saturated market and you're needing to compete on the details of the software already or the tech specs? You've brought it to Australia and ANZ more broadly. Why do you think it was more commonplace in the States, and why is it lagged to date here regionally?
Look, there's a few reasons, right? Okay. The US market, they are less risk adverse. They're early adopters of technology that provide them a real hard dollar value return on investment.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
In the US, when you're negotiating and you can actually show that hard dollar amount of savings or where leakage is gone or what you can actually do for them in that regard, typically there's no risk aversion to that. They're not going, hey, can we speak to 20 of your customers? Can we, get into the back of house of your organization and how it works? There's none of those types of conversations. It's like, okay, we're going to sign this contract and hold you accountable to what you've told us that you're going to do for us, which is great, right? Because that's why we have contracts in the first place, that hold you accountable to what you've said you were going to do for that customer, right? That's enough in the US. The other reason I think that you see it as a saturated market today is because there's predominantly a lot more larger enterprises with decentralized decision-making in the United States, right? Out here, we've got large companies, really large enterprise companies, but in the US, you've got a broader range of large enterprise companies, right? So they had a problem set earlier on than what we probably had here in Australia, and a problem set that small medium business over there wasn't really looking at either. It was, we just pay what we pay. But when the large enterprise organizations started to adopt the technology, because they needed something to be able to do bill processing, because now you're talking hundreds of invoices coming in, unless you want to have, say, 20 to 50 people in your organization doing accounting and bills payable, then, and you've got to think of the expense of that too, right? Like you're paying each of those, say, 20 to 50 employees a salary. You're paying them, your retirement, your 401k or your super. They've got to have, holidays and things like that. There's costs associated with doing that. Whereas you can bring in a software platform that actually is guaranteed to save you more money than you'd ever spend on it. You're automating the process and taking all the headache off that accounts payable team. We're essentially just ingesting the invoice from the point of contact, so the accounts team doesn't need to touch it. We will run it through our software. Our analysts on the back end validate. So we don't just rely on software. We have analysts, which, in our business, that was really important for us, because a lot of TEMs will just rely on the software. And that's a big differentiator for us, because our analysts actually go into the software once it's done its audit and really poke around in there and get really aggressive with it. And that's how we're able to kind of get more cost savings. Anytime we come in and there's another TEM in the States, we're very confident that we're going to showcase, a lot more savings than what that TEM organization's actually doing. So there was early adoption there, right? So, and as you'd be aware, organically, a lot of people go from large enterprise into like a startup business because they've got experience. They know how to grow the business to make it an enterprise organization. Right. So they've taken that knowledge down into that smaller medium piece, and it just spread like wildfire. I think for me, this will surprise you. TEM has actually been around since 1996, right? So almost 30 years TEM has been. It really exploded into the market, I would say, because of the advancements of software in around 2010, where it just went, you could not really go into a customer, even a 50-seat organization that wasn't using TEM software. And then, so in Australia, I think it's more of an education piece. We're bringing this to organizations for the first time. They've never heard about it before. So is that real kind of like, we've got to start the conversation back here, because in the Australian market, it looks and feels and touches like a software or a platform that's never been used before, because it hasn't been broadly used in Australia. Like the Nikes of the world are using it. They're also using it for the Australian market, right? That's how we knew it would work, because we were already doing the technology expense management on the Telstras, the Vodafones, the Optus, your TPGs. We were integrated with everybody 10 years ago because we had these large multinationals. So we knew TEM worked out here in Australia, but the amount of organizations that we would go into, and you've got the CFO doesn't really know where the additional cogs are coming from. The IT manager, they're getting called in a million different directions and they don't have clarity. There's no single pane of glass that they can look into and see all of their IT infrastructure, all of their mobile devices, every asset that they've got out in the field. They might have multiple locations where they can actually just click on a map and go, okay, we've got assets here and here and here. These are all coming up for contract, or these are end of life. So and then it lends into a whole compliance piece, that's, it's exciting to talk about. But I think it just organically rolled down. The pricing got better. So small, medium businesses were able to take advantage of that. And they typically don't have large accounting teams. So this is basically just automating their billing for them. So they don't need an accounting team in-house to be able to do that for them.
What I think is so interesting about what you guys are doing is with surge capacity, you obviously saw a gap in the US market in the way that you could be clearly differentiated and outperform. We're here today talking about new market entry because you're bringing it to Australia as a SaaS company. But there is also a sense of category creation. You're bringing the concept of TEM into Australia at the same time. And I'd love to hear about your experiences you're not just selling the license or the consumption of surge capacity, you're selling the concept of TEM at the same time. And I'd just be keen to hear more about what that's been like for you.
Look, initially it was, we had some really great conversations. Like Australians and Australian market, they're happy to talk to you. And it is a decent amount of happy kind of talk. I think for us, bringing it to the Australian market was challenging in that we were going in direct, right? Which is what we do in the US. It's a direct play. We just go straight in. What we kind of underestimated was the Australian market is a completely different platform than the US market,
yes.
Right? I think in the US, they're more focused on dollars and cents and the value that brings to them. I think in the Australian market, not only have you got to educate on TEM, talk about surge capacity, but we needed a way to build trust quicker because it was really drawing out our sales cycle. So we pivoted pretty early days, probably after the first quarter. And the first quarter was challenging. We had a lot of great conversations, but they didn't really go anywhere. It was like we're on page 12 of the problem set that person kind of had. And because there was no trust built, we actually pivoted and changed to like a partnership model where we were going out and seeking, trusted advisors in the market and talking to them about our product. So we actually stopped selling we started going to people that potentially would see value in a partnership with a company like Surge Capacity and the value that we would be bringing their end customer. And they've obviously had that trusted advisor role where they're bringing value already to that customer. So we pivoted, focused on building trust with partners that were valued and trusted advisors in the Australian market, and then kind of came in off the back of their introduction to us. So we had a lot more credibility straight away. And I think that was the most important piece for us. The other challenge was that we didn't have Australian use cases, right? We didn't have a beachhead in Australia. So when they're looking at, and we've got a long list of amazing names, which we do provide in those demos. It's like, look, we've got testimonials, we've got case studies from these organizations, and they go, okay, that's great, but what about Australian companies?
Yeah.
But I think you're missing the concept. The value is actually understanding that we have the capability set to bring those types of names value. So therefore, if you were to take that, at a street value, if we're providing high level of value to organizations with those names, we're guaranteeing that we're going to bring that same value to your organization, because we've done this with some of the hardest companies to be able to achieve this with. So for us, it was really about educating, getting that trust earlier through trusted advisors in the organization, in the Australian market, and then really kind of go in from there. And then we saw a lot quicker uptake. The trust was already there. They saw the value in what we'd done. We'd gotten them into conversations with our customer base. So they'd actually spoken to them. How long you been with Josh and the team? Oh, I've been working with Josh and the team 15 years. They're amazing. This is what they've done for us over the time. So yeah, that's been really kind of key to our success. And to your point, we always look for other ways we can provide value, right? TEM is a software that you could sell to a customer and have them run it. They wouldn't see the value out of it. So we actually sell it at a discounted rate as a managed service. So we actually fully manage the platform.
Oh, interesting.
So, and this was really interesting to some of our key value partners, people that in the market. They're like, wow, right. So it's not a software platform where they're actually going in and having to dig through the detail of the reporting. It's like, no, we manage that. They have it accessible to them. Like IT managers can jump in and see where staff are or assets are or where the cost centers are allocated. They can disconnect services, do all their MACD through our single sign-on portal, even do procurement, right, through our portal. They can do all of that, or they can call us and we will do all of that for them. We put all the reporting together for them. We bundle all the reporting every month to say, hey, this is what we've saved you this month. Here's where there was a few issues. You had 9 people that went overseas. They would have received overages because they didn't have a global roaming plan on there. We went in and added those global roaming plans because we could see that they were pinging in other countries, right? So we can proactively actually mitigate more of their leakage by managing the invoicing, whereas an IT manager doesn't have the time to do that, to be able to jump in and actually identify, hang on a second, we've had these alerts. We need to actually make some pricing plan changes and revert them back to the start of the billing cycle. These are the types of insights that our managed service actually brings for you, outside of the fact that we're just saving you money. We're one throat to choke. You can call us and get complete visibility. Any report that you could possibly think of, we can provide. The other thing with our interface, our platform, we've got 550 customizable pieces to that. So we can actually design the platform, the single pane of glass, for exactly how that user wants to visibly see it. So you might have a CFO that wants to see this because it's important for their board reporting. But the IT manager, he's on a granular level. He wants to be able to see this. So we can really customize that out per customer. And it just brings immense amount of value. Obviously, for our customers, the shiny toy is always the savings. They come in because they're like, hey, we just want to do a pressure test and see if there is any savings out there. We think we do a pretty good job, and it's like, we try not to sell like that because it's just selling on savings doesn't really do what we do justice. The savings and what the software actually does, it's automating and auditing all of your invoicing, making sure that you're paying exactly what you're contracted to pay to that organization, making sure that there's no anomalies in the billing whatsoever, and your accounting team never has to touch it. Like, think about that for a second. The amount of invoices potentially an MSP is processing a month is about 121 invoices, right? And we're also processing out invoices to all of their 1,600 to 6,000 customers.
Yeah.
That's a month's worth of work. So if we can take half of that pain away, we've done all the vendor invoicing for them, automated to the point where they can just hit approve and pay it out. We'll actually even go a step further once we have the trust and say, would you like us to pay that bill for you so you don't actually have any touch on that bill? So we'll automate it, optimize it, audit it, and pay the bill for you if you like. So now we've taken away that whole headache, right, of the organization or the accounting team to have to process the invoices to then be able to send invoices to their customer base.
Yeah, interesting. I, having been involved in a few SaaS platforms entering Australia, I agree with you. It's a hard sell when your key message is potential savings or potential reduction of time cost.
Yeah.
It tends to be in a risk-averse environment. It tends to not have enough weight to get somebody to make a decision. Do you think that the managed component of the service is what maybe elicited action or propelled a sales conversation further where it wouldn't have had you been just a software platform?
Yeah, absolutely. The management of it is the key, right? The fact that we're alleviating a ton of the workload on their side. They never actually have to look at our software if they don't want to, right?
Right.
We're managing it for them 100%. We just show them the value of the software. I think we'll probably talk about this later, but one of the things that we've done out here in Australia is move to a free proof of concept where we'll ingest, 3 of your invoices from maybe your top 3 vendors that you have, just to showcase. And we actually put that into our software like it would be if they were a customer of ours, so they can see it and touch it and feel it. Gives you a complete report card of, a margin analysis, 0 usage devices. And at the end of that, it pops out a nice little, hey, we'll save you X amount of dollars this month, save you X amount of dollars next month, and so on and so forth. So the free proof of concept has been really key for us because there's no risk involved for the customer and for us. And then they go, well, how many resources do you need of ours to actually do the proof of concept? Because that's the other pain point. We don't have time and we don't have people. And for us, because we're extracting invoices and contracts and marrying it up to the HR data that's already in your system, right? So that to us is an Excel spreadsheet with name of employee, contact number, and email address. That's all lined in. We've got all your cost centers. We've got the contracts. We've got the invoices. It typically takes us half an hour to 45 minutes with a lower entry level accounting person that can give us access to 3 invoices. So effectively, it's costing them 30 to 45 minutes of one of their employees' time to do a free proof of concept that's going to give them a report card on any leakage in the business. And we say always, we hope it comes back at 0. We've never seen it come back at 0. We actually see it astronomically this way, especially in the Australian market, because it's not been done out here unless you're a large multinational. So they don't know what they don't know. The leakage is there. They're just used to paying for it. And there's no way to reconcile when, $400,000 of COGS comes out of nowhere at the end of the month. So
yeah, that sounds really powerful to prove it with live data. If we take a step back, in order to get to the point where you are talking about that, and in the context of you bringing surge capacity to Australia, It makes a lot of sense to me, and I think it's really wise the way you guys pivoted and went down a partner strategy, let's call it, eliciting trust through trusted partners.
Yep.
Who at the time, and it might still be the same, but who at the time was that ICP and buyer that the partner had access to and you were able to bank off their brand or their own personal brand, let's say even, and open up the ability to reach the target ICPs?
Yeah, look, it just depends on the size, I think, of the organization. I'm understanding the question correctly. I think in kind of small, medium market over here, I think really you're talking to the CFO initially, and you're getting access into that persona. CFO obviously cares about money, right?
Yeah.
Going in and out of the business. So you can get access to a CFO in a small, medium size organization. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Probably in an enterprise organization where you've got a whole procurement team that's based around bringing on technologies that save the company money, help you negotiate better contracts and drive overall pricing down while, so your cost to serve goes down, productivity, efficiency of the business goes up, and you're able to serve your customers a lot better. Now, in the enterprise space, you're talking to procurement people, really. Mid-market, which is predominantly kind of where we're at, we've got a couple now, as you're aware, we kind of talked about it before. We've got a couple of large enterprise businesses now here in Australia, which we're dealing with the procurement and IT director. But typically it's the CFO and the IT manager. They're going to see the most value out of it because we're saving the organization money. The CFO's team on the accounting side, they're saving a ton of time. There's no human error involved in it. It's all being reconciled through our data set. And then the IT manager, just to have visibility and to be able to make changes directly from one portal. If you've ever been an IT manager, you know that these are disparate, portal, things like that. You've got to go to a million different places to do anything, even down to an employee leaving, right? The IT manager will send off an email to Telstra to say, hey, this employee is no longer here. Can you please cancel this service? You get a nice little email back saying, yes, we'll cancel that service, right? If the IT manager doesn't go to the bill the next month and actually look for that phone number, then there's no validation whether that actually took place or not. And then there's a disconnect between accounting and the IT manager. IT manager knows that service should have been shut off. Accounting has no visibility that service should have been shut off. Whereas TEM in itself, in our portal, actually manages those disconnects to the point of, obviously, we're pulling in the data the next bill, right? So we're going to identify that phone number. It's going to ping straight away, show us red, and say, this was canceled last month. Here's the email associated with it. We can go back to Telstra and say, please amend the billing, send it back to us and remove that number. Obviously, it's typically not one mobile phone. It's typically a lot. We had a customer the other day that thought they had 900 devices. And, the CFO is like, I don't understand that because we've only got 722 employees. So how do we have that amount of mobile phones?
Yeah.
And sure enough, when we did the proof of concept, those employees had left, the shortest one was 6 months. The longest one was 3 years.
Yeah,
but
wow.
they've been paying the billing, for that amount of lines for up to a 3-year period. Like, think about the leakage just in that one specific category. But I could talk about heaps of different categories that we find these types of anomalies in. The software just, it goes through everything with a finite comb, to identify any anomaly against that bill. And it marries it up against any historical invoices and things like that as well. So yeah, we've got a lot of AP and AI built into it. It's very, very smart the way it works. So
yeah, and you guys are getting some big wins on the big logos too. What in terms of your growth strategy, as you moved into that sort of referral, having evangelist type partners introducing you into the right people and the right teams, is that still core to your strategy, or have you evolved from that to back to direct? Where are you at now?
We're actually doubling down on these partnerships because the partnerships and the partners that we've actually brought in, they actually bring value to our customer set in their own right. We're providing them, our partners, with visibility into their customers, right? So the customer wants to share the information that we've provided in the portal with those trusted advisors. And so for us, we're really doubling down on those partnerships. It's actually making us a lot stickier in the business. And we work with so many different partners now that we can kind of go, hey, this would be a really good one for Jeremy. Like Jeremy's product set would actually bring this customer a lot of value based on the discovery that we've done with that customer, and that being another pain point. So being able to connect that customer with other relevant parties that, we've been working with now, they've brought us into their organizations, they're trusted advisors within their organization. We're actually able to share that back across and say, hey, these guys are struggling with that. You guys have been solving that with XYZ company. Love to introduce you so you could solve this for our customer as well. So absolutely doubling down on those partnerships, mate. It's been key to us. I will say, because of the runs that we're getting on the board now, we are seeing a lot of companies come in direct, especially the larger ones, which is really interesting to me. They're actually going to the website and coming in through a lead on our website direct. Whereas before we had no market presence. So now that we've got so many partners out there talking about surge capacity and the value that TEM brings, and they're doing that at a 40,000 foot view. So the customer's got an idea that potentially we could save them money, not really sure how that all works. But then when we come in and offer a free proof of concept, there's no risk for them. And we get to show them, significant money that we're going to put it back in their bank. Right. So it's great. I love what we do. I've worked in plenty of roles where my phone rings and I'm like, oh no, this is really
right.
Surge and TEM, working in TEM, with my experience, it's just one of those roles where you're excited to pick up your phone. It's usually a customer going, man, did you see that last report that just came out for us? And I'm like, yeah, I did. That's a good month, right? That's a good month of savings for you guys. He's like, we've paid for your service 20 times over just on this 1 month. It's like, yeah, we have. We love to bring the value. It's like, this is what you should be paying. Otherwise, you're just giving the vendor, the carrier, more money than they should be receiving based on the contract. So it's exciting. We just get to bring organizations value, and help them out. And a lot of companies, like you look post-COVID, a lot of companies are rebuilding. The cost of everything has gone up, staffing, everything has gone up. So it's kind of like we could not have timed bringing TEM to Australia better, I don't think. I think our approach initially was a bit naive, thinking that we could just go in direct and have trust. And that was probably directed at me, right? Because I've come from a US market, lived and worked my whole corporate career, 17 years in the US. And I'm thinking, well, this brings value to every single business in the US. This has got to bring value to every single business in Australia. And we had to kind of pivot around that messaging because while it brings them value, if there's no trust, then, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Australian companies, you could put a pot of gold down on the table and say, that's yours. And we're expecting nothing in return. And guarantee you they're leaving that pot of gold on that table because they're like, this is too good to be true. And it typically is. But with us, it's not. And that's the hardest thing to overcome in selling. It's not too good to be true. We've been doing this, for our customers in the US for 15 years, so, which is exciting in itself, right? We've had a long journey to be able to do that. So, and look, for us, we don't leave it there. We're evangelists in the market. We want to bring more value. So we don't stop at the product, the core of what we do and the value that brings. We're in massive development stage, and you'll see come new financial year, we're going to twofold the capabilities of what we can do from TEM perspective, which is really exciting.
That is really exciting. I really appreciate how you're talking about value as well, not just in the way that you're unlocking real value within your clients' businesses, but the way that you're talking about value in your partner network or even partner ecosystem, let's call it, in the way that you're talking about, and I just heard you say, looking for opportunities to add value in and above what you offer as a commercial offering, but providing introductions and providing other opportunities for your partners to support in client businesses. I just think that's such a great route to market, knowing and trusting that doing good things brings goodness back to you and doesn't necessarily have a direct ROI other than the totality of it being ROI. And it's just so refreshing to hear you talk about it in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I said before, that's what gets us out of bed every day. I bounce out of bed excited to have the opportunity to educate these businesses on, efficiencies. I hear, every MSP on LinkedIn right now is talking about BPA, which is business process automation.
Yes.
Like that's the key. That's the future in the Australian market right now. And I love the development of that. I love what like Atlassian and companies like that are doing around business process automation. But TEM really fits into that category of business process automation because we are actually doing that. We're doing BPA for your IT invoicing, but on a much granular level. We're automating that whole process, taking that pain point out of your business and making sure that, you're paying for what you've got and we're giving your money back to you effectively. It's your money. Yeah.
Josh, this has been so awesome. I really appreciate the way that you're thinking about this, the way that you guys have built your business, the way that you've entered Australia with it, not just with a company, but with a category, and just your overall approach. Massive congratulations on all the wins you guys are getting. And I just know that you guys are just going to propel upwards from here.
Yeah, absolutely. We've, I feel like, early stages, we're on the roller coaster of just click, click, click going up. And then we've hit the peak and just, it's flowing so quickly and rapidly. And it's exciting. I look at my calendar, now versus 6 months ago, it's completely booked wall to wall. I mean, I think we've rescheduled this like 3 times because there were meetings that I couldn't leave on the table, so it's a really exciting place to be for us. And like I said, kind of what's next for us is really doubling down on these partnerships, bringing more value to companies. We're expanding our data and analytics layer to get down to a really, when I showcase this for yourself and for LinkedIn with our partners, what we've developed, it is absolutely mind-boggling, especially with where the Australian market is now. I think, I don't want to call the Australian public cloud situation less mature than the US, but I feel like there is a lot of learnings there to be had. I think that people have overinflated, public cloud environments. And I think that what you're going to see from the level of data analytics layer that we can put over things like cloud and FinOps and utilities and, proactive insights, it's absolutely, and on the SaaS side as well, to that point, getting it down to a granular level where you can actually see, how many times your employees used Teams, in the last month, or have they not logged in, or how many people are using Zoom, how many licenses do we have out there, how readily, they're using those types of services. So we're really kind of extending our reach and providing more value and simplifying the process in which we have to do that. So yeah, it's exciting for where we're going as an organization, for sure.
Well, I tell you what, get all that stuff to market and then come back on the show and tell me about how you guys launched it and went from new market entry, and we'll do the next episode on extending the reach and launching new services on top of that. It'll be cool.
Yeah. And the other exciting thing, I know we're kind of time poor right now, but we're a few weeks away from doing a rebranding for Surge, kind of separating out our consulting side to our tech side, because we're really bolstering out the tech approach that we're taking in the Australian market. So you'll see that hit the market here pretty soon. It's really exciting for us, and just bolsters everything that we're doing in the Australian market right now. So yeah, leveraging those partners, they're absolutely gold for us. The other plug too, if you haven't already, get Derek Morgan on your podcast. He's running a company called ReferIt Marketing, and effectively it's a platform in which, because we're receiving so many referrals from partners, and as you'd be aware, it gets lost in Outlook, and you're like, did I follow up with that person? He's actually got a platform where it shows, and you can actually invite people and introduce people through the platform itself, but it keeps it in a really nice, succinct, type environment where I can see all of my valued partners, and when the last time I had a touch point with them, I can interact with them through that portal. That's really been key as well. It's been amazing. So just a plug to those guys for really helping us out and being evangelists in the marketing space. So it's really, really cool what they're doing.
Yeah,
as well.
we're all in on that. We've partnered with them officially as a system integrator.
Yeah.
We're helping those guys roll out into channel programs. And by the time this episode publishes, his episode with Derek will have been 3 episodes prior to this. So he's on the show. So it's all synergy. It's all working together.
Love it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. As always, Jeremy. Great to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you.